The ice prison was a monument to cruelty, a towering structure of frozen despair that stretched into the sky, its surface glinting under the pale light of a dying star. It was a place where the galaxy's most dangerous beings were sent to be forgotten, their bodies frozen in time, their minds trapped in endless nightmares. And deep within its crystalline depths, she waited. Her name was Kaela Veyra, once a warrior of the Galactic Accord, now a prisoner of her own people, betrayed by those she had sworn to protect. She had been entombed in the ice prison for crimes she did not commit. Her body was suspended in stasis, but her mind was awake. She had counted the seconds, the minutes, the years, her thoughts her only companion in the cold, unyielding darkness. Until he came. The ship descended silently, its sleek black hull blending into the void of space. It was a scavenger's vessel, small and unremarkable, the kind of ship that slipped through the cracks of the galaxy's notice. Its pilot, a man named Jarek Sol, had no grand ambitions. He was a drifter, a survivor, a man who lived by his wits and his instincts. And his instincts had led him here, to the ice prison, where the galaxy's forgotten treasures lay hidden. Jarek had heard the stories, of course. The ice prison was a place of nightmares, a graveyard for the damned. But Jarek had never been one to shy away from danger. He had a knack for finding value in the most unlikely places, and the ice prison was no exception. He wasn't looking for trouble. He was looking for profit. But what he found was her. The prison's systems were ancient, their defenses long since decayed. Jarek slipped through the cracks with ease, his tools carving a path through the ice. He moved with purpose, his breath fogging in the frigid air, his footsteps echoing in the cavernous halls. He didn't know what he was looking for, but he knew he would know it when he found it. And then he saw her. She was suspended in a block of ice, her form perfectly preserved, her face serene despite the horrors she must have endured. Her armor, once gleaming, was now dulled by time, but it still bore the insignia of the Galactic Accord. Jarek recognized it immediately. He had seen it before, in the stories, in the histories. She was a legend, a hero, a warrior who had fought for justice in a galaxy that had none. And she was beautiful. Jarek hesitated. He had come here for profit, not for heroics. But something about her called to him, something he couldn't ignore. He raised his tools and began to cut her free. The ice shattered, and Kaela fell into his arms, her body limp, her breath shallow. Jarek caught her, his heart pounding, his mind racing. He didn't know what he was doing, but he knew he couldn't leave her here. He carried her to his ship, his steps quick, his thoughts a blur. He didn't know if she was alive, if she was dangerous, if she was even sane. But he knew he had to save her. When she awoke, it was with a gasp, her eyes wide, her body trembling. She looked at him, her gaze sharp, her expression unreadable. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, two strangers bound by fate. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice hoarse, her tone wary. "Jarek Sol," he replied, his voice steady, his eyes meeting hers. "I found you in the ice prison. I freed you." Kaela's eyes narrowed. "Why?" Jarek hesitated. He didn't have an answer, not one that made sense. "I couldn't leave you there," he said finally. "It didn't feel right." Kaela studied him, her gaze piercing, her mind racing. She didn't trust him. She couldn't. Trust had betrayed her once before, and it had cost her everything. But she was alive, and she was free, and that was more than she had dared to hope for. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice cold, her tone guarded. Jarek shook his head. "Nothing. I don't want anything from you. I just wanted to help." Kaela didn't believe him. She couldn't, but she didn't have a choice. She was weak, her body frail, her strength gone. She needed time to recover, to rebuild, to remember who she was. And for now, She needed him. The days passed in silence, the tension between them palpable. Kaela kept her distance, her eyes always watching, her mind always wary. Jarek gave her space, his actions careful, his words few. He didn't know what to say to her, how to reach her, but he didn't give up. He brought her food, water, medicine. He gave her clothes, a bed, a place to rest. He didn't ask for anything in return. He just cared, and slowly, begrudgingly, Kaela began to trust him. "Why did they imprison you?" Jarek asked one night, his voice soft, his tone gentle. Kaela hesitated. She didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to remember. But something about him, about the way he looked at her, made her want to try. "I was betrayed," she said finally, her voice low, her eyes distant. "By the people I trusted, by the people I fought for. They accused me of crimes I didn't commit, of betraying the Accord. They didn't want the truth. They wanted me gone." Jarek nodded, his expression thoughtful. "And now?" Kaela's eyes hardened. "Now I want justice." The galaxy was a dangerous place, and Kaela's return did not go unnoticed. The Accord had long since declared her dead, but her reappearance sent shockwaves through the system. There were those who wanted her silenced, those who wanted her dead, and those who wanted to use her for their own gain. But Kaela was not alone. Jarek stood by her side, his loyalty unwavering, his resolve unshakable. He had no stake in her fight, no reason to risk his life for her cause. But he did it anyway, because he believed in her, because he cared, and because he loved her. The final battle was fierce, the odds against them insurmountable. But Kaela fought with a fury born of vengeance. Her strength returned, her will unbreakable. And Jarek fought with her, his skills sharp, his courage unmatched. Together, they faced her betrayers, their enemies falling before them, their justice swift and merciless. And when the dust settled, Kaela stood victorious, her name cleared, her honor restored. But the cost was high. Jarek lay wounded, his body broken, his breath shallow. Kaela knelt beside him, her hands trembling, her heart aching. She had lost so much, but she couldn't lose him. "Why did you do it?" she asked, her voice choked with tears. "Why did you fight for me?" Jarek smiled, his eyes soft, his expression peaceful. "Because you're worth it," he said simply. And then he was gone. Kaela buried him on a quiet world, far from the chaos of the galaxy. She marked his grave with a simple stone, his name etched into its surface. And she vowed to honor his memory, to live the life he had given her, to be the person he had believed she could be. She didn't know if she could ever trust again, but she knew she would never forget the man who had freed her from the ice prison, who had given her a second chance, who had shown her that even in the darkest of times, there was still hope. And that was enough.